Morning, everyone. Our reading today is from Luke chapter 6, verses 27 to 38, and it fits in well. But I say to you that listen, love your enemies, do good to those who hate you, bless those who curse you, pray for those who abuse you. If anyone strikes you on the cheek, offer the other also. And from anyone who takes away your coat, do not withhold even your shirt. Give to everyone who begs from you, and if anyone takes away your goods, do not ask for them again. Do to others as you would have them do to you. If you love those who love you, what credit is that to you? For even sinners love those who love them. If you do good to those who do good to you, what credit is that to you? For even sinners do the same. If you lend to those from whom you hope to receive, what credit is that to you? Even sinners lend to sinners to receive as much again. But love your enemies, do good, and lend, expecting nothing in return. Your reward will be great, and you will be children of the Most High, for he is kind to the ungrateful and the wicked. Be merciful, just as your Father is merciful. Do not judge, and you will not be judged. Do not condemn, and you will not be condemned. Forgive, and you will be forgiven. Give, and it will be given to you. A good measure, pressed down, shaken together, running over, will be put into your lap. For the measure you give will be the measure you get back. Your word, O Lord, is a lamp to our feet and a light to our path.
There's an old saying that goes, life wasn't meant to be easy. But there are some things in life that are very easy, I think. It's very easy to find an enemy. It's very easy to make an enemy. It's very easy to keep an enemy. Enemies might be for a moment. It might be that interaction you have in the supermarket when someone pushes in, or when you suddenly find yourself meandering rather than kind of sticking to your line and someone gives you a harsh word. I see plenty of enemies made in short time on the bike path, let me tell you. Enemies can be for a season. A harsh word is spoken. Something doesn't go right financially between people. A misunderstanding happens. Somebody else records or recounts a conversation in a particular way that causes pain. Or you go through the breakdown of a relationship. I don't know, but enemies can be for a season. And then there are lifelong enemies. People where things have gone terribly wrong, where lines are drawn in the sand, or in fact lines are drawn in the concrete. Never again to be sorted out. I think it's really easy in life to become cold. John Lennon has this song, you know, one thing you can't hide is when you're crippled inside. You can put all the veneer on you like, But I think it's very easy to become cold, to become indifferent to the pain or the suffering of others. I think it's really easy to become judgmental. I see it all the time. People make judgments about others all the time. I'm guilty of it at times too. I make judgments about people on appearance or on the first word spoken. It's very easy in someone else's struggle to become paternalistic or maternalistic and think that what they need is a lecture on how to do things well or advice. It's very easy in life to show favouritism from whom the reward for you is reciprocation. It's very easy to be nice to people who are nice to you. It's very easy to be nice to people who can give back to you or do you a favour, or for whom you will look good for doing the favour. It's very easy in life to go for charity rather than relationship. There's a new book I've got on order called Toxic Charity. Toxic charity. The idea that people are stuck in charity because others keep them there by doing charity rather than meeting, rather than relationship. It's kind of charity at its worst becomes help without compassion. It's very easy to find a grudge, to live with resentment. It has its own life about it. I call resentment one of the rusts of life. It's like it corrodes you on the inside, resentment. And yet so many of us justify that corrosion. We have all sorts of excuses as to why we have a right to hold on to it. It's very easy to live comfortably with hatred. It's very easy, I think, sometimes to be able to state what I need. It's very easy to be able to say, I need to be loved. I need to be forgiven. Our Prime Minister this week got himself in a little, this week or last week, got himself in a little bit of hot water around that one. Demanding forgiveness from our First Nations people. Well, not demanding, but putting the onus of the relationship, the problem with the relationship, back on to our Aboriginal brothers and sisters. As if to say, we've done our bit, now it's your turn, you need to forgive us, that's your problem. I meet many people who kind of demand forgiveness, but don't really want to make an apology to get there. I think for many of us, we know we need mercy. We know when we're due an apology, as if those things are one-way streets. As if when I demand it, it should be free to me. But when you require it of me, I'll take my time about that, thank you very much. Very easy to live that kind of way, with a sense of entitlement to the grace of others around you or the grace of God. The much harder road, the less easy pathway, is the pathway of love. It's much harder to love an enemy. It's much harder to love somebody who owes you an apology. It's much harder to find compassion instead of judgment. To let that be what you marinate in so it becomes your first response it's a much harder, longer road. It requires more commitment. It requires more guts. It requires more courage to walk the pathway of love. Another way of looking at it is I don't know if this phrase works at all or not, but I would call it the hospitality of the heart. It's much harder to speak well of someone with whom you're annoyed or with whom you've made an enemy. It's much harder to see things from their side because it can't be me, it must be them. It's much harder to pray for an enemy. It's much harder not to throw an insult at someone who insults you or abuses you. It's much harder to live your life with first response as generosity or grace or compassion. It's much harder to find forgiveness. It's hard to both seek forgiveness. It's hard to offer forgiveness. It's hard sometimes to understand that our salvation is wrapped up in these moments. That if we want to be alive, if we want to come back from the dead in this life, it's often wrapped up in moments like those. But this is the pathway that Jesus calls his followers onto. I've preached on this before. I've had people come to me may well you say forgive somebody, or may well you say love your enemy. And I want to say, no, it's not actually me, it's Jesus, but may well you say, and you know what the next word always is? But. And all of us in this room would know how to launch into a story that starts with but. The challenge that Jesus throws to us this morning is to not start with but. Is to open our hearts to the Spirit of God. Be that with a friend, with prayer. Be that in your own place of the muddiness of the waters. I love that analogy. But cannot be our first response when it comes to Jesus. That's a hard challenge. But the promise in it is life. That's the promise that comes out of Jesus' mouth, that when we choose love, when we choose the pathway of forgiveness, when we choose the pathway of generosity, when we choose the pathway of graciousness, when we choose the pathway of kindness, of peace, of seeking forgiveness, of offering an apology, of offering forgiveness, of receiving an apology from somebody. When we choose the pathway of compassion. Friends, it's not an easy path. But it is the pathway of love. It's the pathway of life. It's the pathway of salvation. And it's the pathway that someone, at least one, has taken before us and shows us the way. It's the pathway of Jesus. So I invite you to pack your bag, bring your sandwiches, put your drink bottle in. We're going for a walk on that path. Amen.